What is up, little warriors? Today we'll be taking a look at the complete works of two-time wrestling author Booker T. It's From Prison to Promise and My Rise to Wrestling Royalty. Here on the mothership, it's Wrestle Book Review. Welcome to Wrestle Book Review. My name is Keith, I am the well-read machine, and Wrestle Book Review is a proud member of the OSW Podcast Network available at piledriverwrestling.net. This week I have had the opportunity to go through and listen to every show that currently has a posting on the OSW Podcast Network. Some shows I did multiple episodes of, it's all good stuff, and there are currently podcasts on there that are covering from 1983 up to the present day. So regardless of what era you are most interested in, or what era it was when you first fell in love with the mat game, there is something for everyone on the OSW Podcast Network at piledriverwrestling.net. You can find me on Twitter at WrestleBookReview, that's R-E-V-U, or on my blog, it's wrestlebookreview.blogspot.com, and I also encourage you to check out the message board and community pages on piledriverwrestling.net. This is Wrestle Book Review, and the point of the podcast is to talk about wrestling books. And really the only news that I'm throwing out there most of the time is release dates or new covers or changes in release dates, that sort of stuff. But I did want to mention that this past week, one half of the Fantastics, Tommy Rogers, who was one of the crispest, cleanest, and at the time coolest wrestlers in the whole industry at the time, he passed away earlier this week. For those of you who haven't seen any matches involving the Fantastics, Tommy Rogers and Bobby Fulton, I highly recommend going back and finding them. There's a great series they had with the Midnight Express. There's also a really before-its-time series that the Fantastics had with the Sheep Herders, which, later became the Bushwhackers. The most famous of their matches was the 1986 Crockett Cup, which actually wound up getting 5 stars from Dave Meltzer. Rogers was only about, somewhere between 5'6" and 5'8". He was a small guy, but even at that time, in the land and the time of the Giants, his ability and his athleticism really put him over the top. He and Fulton were a really revolutionary and amazing team. When you think of the babyface tag teams of the WCW, NWA of that period, the Fantastics are often forgotten about, as compared to the Fabulous Ones, who were a little earlier, and the Rock and Roll Express, who more or less occupied some of the same timeline as the Fantastics, though the Express are still going today. And for those of you who are, strictly WWE, WWF fans, you might remember that I think it was 96, 97 in that area, Tommy Rogers had 2 matches on Raw in the Light Heavyweight Championship tournament. One of them was actually against Bobby Fulton. So if you're in the mood to go back down memory lane or to, watch a little bit of wrestling from either a time or a place that you're not overly familiar with, this week a good start would be watching anything you can get with the Fantastics. They were definitely ahead of their time. And now to the task at hand. It's a back-to-back Booker Bash or a heaping helping of Huffman. From Prison to Promise was released in 2012, and My Rise to Wrestling Royalty was released in 2015. Both books are written by Booker T. Huffman with Andrew William Wright. They were both released by Medallion Press and are available as hardcover and ebook. Without spoiling the story, I'll give a little bit of summary here. Booker T is essentially orphaned by the time he is 14. He spends the better part of the next decade being shuffled around from family member to family member. Booker T's early life is one where people who were in a position to help either couldn't or didn't, or people who were in less than ideal circumstances to help raise him stood up despite the fact that it wasn't the best environment for a child to grow up in. What is really remarkable is that Booker T, in his writing, holds no bitterness to either group. And the overall theme of the book is that he succeeded not just in spite of, but in many cases because of the struggles he had as a young man. There is a sense as well that as fucked up as the professional wrestling industry can be, it's the most stable environment he's had in his whole life. Huffman paints a really good picture of his formative years, in that he gives us enough details to understand and to get a good image of what he was going through, without droning on too much to the point that it is either melodramatic or silly. He's very open and honest about everything in his life. I'm sure he made some omissions of the more grisly details, but across the board he gives what seems to be a very complete account of everything in his life, the good and the bad, and negative choices he's made as well, and how he overcame them. He has a real talent for writing about things away from the ring. Now, some readers may be disappointed that there's not much wrestling content in there. There are really only a few chapters at the end that are devoted to his early days in wrestling, training with Ivan Putski, Tugboat Tyler's Texas Independent Wrestling, and then his entry into Global Wrestling Federation. And there's a few bits and pieces in there, but for the most part he sticks fairly close to the timeline, and doesn't say a heck of a lot about things that are to come. He also doesn't give a heck of a lot of information about his own years as a fan, or even if he was a fan growing up. There's a few things thrown in there every now and then, but you sort of get the sense that he might not have even been a fan growing up. Certainly his brother Stevie Ray was. But if people are looking for memories of him watching the Von Erichs or any of Paul Bosch's shows, they're going to be disappointed. All that being said, From Prison to Promise is very, very good. A remarkable thing about the book is that even though you know things work out well for Booker T, and at points I was reading the book and he was actually on screen doing commentary on Raw, I would get caught up in the story where I'm wondering, okay, is this guy going to get out of this? How is he going to get out of this? And how are things going to change? All things considered, it's a very good book, and even though it's from 2012, it deals with an earlier period of his career, so it was written in past tense. There's nothing dated about the book today that there wasn't when it was first released. And I recommend it highly. 2015's My Rise to Wrestling Royalty picks up exactly where From Prison to Promise left off. So it is a direct sequel. Regarding sequels, I was hoping for Empire Strikes Back, and I got The Clone Wars. The book is very good in that the quality of research or the quality of Booker T's memory is spot on. He even lists the names of jobbers he had in his early WCW match, which, granted, he could have found by watching the matches on the network or on YouTube. But the fact that the detail is there is very helpful to the book. Unlike the first book, this one sticks much closer to the career, and maybe because the events are more recent and maybe there's still hard feelings or not enough time has passed, he doesn't delve as much into his personal life, which really was the strength of the first book. He was very open and truthful about a lot of things that happened when he was a kid, and there's a sense that he's holding the cards a little closer to the chest about his personal stuff. So depending on what you're looking for a wrestling book, this one might not be as interesting to you. On the flip side, he does detail matches from his career, almost to the point that there's just too much in there. He spends a lot of time summarizing his matches, and it's almost a sort of work-shoot commentary where he's jumping in and out of character that some readers might really enjoy and other ones won't. While the attention to detail these matches get is mind-boggling, it's also at times just a very dry summary of, then he kicked me, then I body slammed him, then I jumped off the rope, then I landed on him, then I spinneroonied. The really strong part of this book is the first bit up until WCW's closure. He writes about the backstage environment and politics extremely well, but once he jumps to WWE, a lot of that disappears. Now, there are some moments where he's very candid about certain things, but at times you wonder, is he playing a smart political game by not discussing certain events? The one that jumped to mind to me more than anything else was his WrestleMania program with Triple H. Most of what I've spoken to people about and read about from that angle was very negative. People were absolutely irate that Booker T didn't beat Triple H, and essentially his career was buried for a period of time after that. And Booker spends very little time talking about it. Now, it may be the thumper, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. But I have the sense that if he was completely out of the wrestling business, or that exact same event had happened in WCW, we might get a little bit more information about it. And there's some personal issues as well that seem to be painted with the same brush. Though this book is good, it pales in comparison to the first one. And though readers might enjoy it, it's missing the heart that From Prison to Promise had. A point on my end as well is we are introduced to a lot of people in Booker T's life in the first book. Family members, friends, And I had sort of hoped that we'd get a resolution or an epilogue to some of these people, almost like a where are they now. We unfortunately don't get that. A highlight of the book is in the margin there's a counter, and every time Booker T wins a title, it's tallied up on the side, so you can really keep track of his 35 championships. And if by some wacky chance you're buying this book for a recap of Booker T's TNA days, you're going to be highly disappointed. There's only very few pages devoted to his whole time in TNA. So if you're looking for some Booker T reading, I recommend both books, but highly recommend From Prison to Promise, and would only recommend My Rise to Wrestling Royalty if you read the first book, really enjoyed it, and just want the follow-up. After reading both books, essentially back-to-back, I realized that the two books could have been written as one, providing there was a lot of editorial cuts. And ultimately, 60 to 90% of them cuts would come from the second book. So if the big question is, if Booker T released a third book, would I buy it? The answer is absolutely. I would certainly hope it's more like the first book than the second one. It's a gamble I'd be more than happy to take. And that's that for the double dose of Booker T. I'm currently reading/rereading Brian Alvarez and R.D. Reynolds' Death of WCW. I read the original release when it first came out, and I've had the 10th anniversary sitting on my shelf for a little while, and I'm finally getting through it, and it's just as enjoyable as the first one. I'm also still making my way through the ebook of Ronda Rousey's My Fight, Your Fight, and we'll have reviews for both of them up on the website soon, and audio reviews hopefully soon. I say hopefully because for the next couple of weeks I'm going to be out of internet range. I'm pre-recording some reviews that someone else is going to upload for me, and anything else that needs to be maintained while I'm in parts unknown looking for my smile. Ronda Rousey's My Fight, Your Fight is also now on the bestseller list, the New York Times bestseller list. It's been on Amazon's bestseller list for a little while now. And for releases coming soon, Graham Cawthon's Battleground Baltimore, How One Arena Changed Wrestling History, will be coming out very soon, if it's not out already. I have June 2015 as the release date. A new addition to the upcoming releases is I Probably Screwed You Too by Kenny Bolin, and Kenny Bolin is a former OVW manager and longtime close personal friend of James E. Cornette. That book will be coming out, he's hoping, for July 4th. You can pre-order on Facebook. There's also apparently an Amazon link. I haven't been able to find it yet. And Daniel Bryan's Yes, My Impossible Journey to the Main Event of WrestleMania is coming in July 21st. Bob Backlund has got one coming August 4th. The WWE Network, 119 Most Asked Questions and What You Need to Know is August 10th. Ultimate Warrior in September, Iron Sheik in October, Bill Apter in October, and The Undertaker's 25 Years of Destruction is coming in November. And with that, we will be tapping out on episode 3. You can find me on Twitter at Wrestlebook Review, my website, wrestlebookreview.blogspot.com. Email me at wrestlebookreview@gmail.com. The next 3 episodes are being recorded this weekend and will be released on a steady schedule. If you do send me a message and I don't get back to you right away, don't fret. I am somewhere where the internet doesn't go. And in the meantime, and in between time, my name is Keith. This was Wrestlebook Review. Thank you very much, and take care.
I keep